Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Pete, it's Films and Stuff. We're back for a new episode. How are you today?
I'm great, Ethan. How are you?
Oh man, we have been busy this past week. We had new episodes of The Boys drop. We had episode 3 of Obi-Wan drop. We have, I think we're still in shock over how good Top Gun Maverick was.
I can't stop telling people enough good things about it, and I've been trying to convince everybody I meet, even strangers on the street, to go out and see it.
Yeah, you should. But something that caught me totally by surprise, that I never even heard about it, and no one told me about it, but you and I have we found it together? We found it, I can't remember who referred to who, but we've been watching Tokyo Vice on HBO Max, and I think we're both like head over heels for it, right?
Right. So it is, it's not a hidden gem because obviously it's on HBO Max, but it is something that I found completely by accident at the very, very beginning of this year when I was compiling our first draft list of shows to keep an eye out on for the rest of the year, as a part of our projections for what we think the year was going to do. And I came across Tokyo Vice on some article, maybe, on, Variety or somewhere else. I can't even remember. And I thought it was an intriguing title only because all of the synopsis said was starring Ansel Elgort, or Engort, whatever it is, Elgort, and Ken Watanabe, right? Who we all know is one of the most prolific cross-cultural actors from Japan into the West.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how I became aware of it. At the time, I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's based on a true story.
Oh.
Ansel Elgort plays Jake Adelstein, who is a real-life reporter. And this is, of course, set in the 90s. So it's a little bit of, nostalgia. We're 30-odd years in the past. And it's his story about, I guess, how he uncovers the corruption that was running rampant through Tokyo.
I mean, it's very interesting because I think for both of us, there is not a lot of popular television or movies about Japanese culture or Japanese society, right? It's a very, I don't want to say it's like closed, but I mean, it's just not that popular. I mean, apart from like Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, can you think of anything else that's based in Japan apart from like a scene from Godzilla, for example?
Alice in Borderlands, if I remember correctly. But again, it's another, you're absolutely right. It's rare to see this in Western media.
Yeah.
It's rare to see it in English. Even, if you look at something like Squid Game, which was a phenomenon based in Korea, but from Korean creators.
Right.
And the only reason that it kind of took the world on storm was because it took Netflix on storm. That's actually how I found out about Alice in Borderlands, which is...
What's Alice in Borderlands about?
It's a similar conceit to Squid Games.
Oh.
In Tokyo, but based in Tokyo or based in Japan. And again, forgive me, I've seen it. It was, obviously made in Japanese. I watched it with subtitles.
Yeah.
I thought it was an excellent take on the Squid Game genre.
Oh.
I really enjoyed it.
Is it very gory and bloody and lots of...
It's not
violence?
Nowhere near as gory. It is a little bit, but like Squid Game, it's more about the psychology behind the players than it is. We've seen in Western media, like movies like Saw and other grotesque, gory horror things, which are equal parts psychological thrillers, but equal parts like gore and vory and things like that. That's not what these shows are about. They show some of it, but they're really more about the interactions between humans. So I like that show. I'm not a fan of gore. I'm not a fan of horror. I'm not a fan of gratuitous violence.
Yeah.
But, they did it really well, I thought. It was really good. I enjoyed it. But you're absolutely right. Outside of that shows on Japan, certainly not in English, I think this is probably the first.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe The Last Samurai, which was, that Tom Cruise movie, again, also starring Ken Watanabe. But again, those movies are few and far in between.
Yeah, but I mean, Last Samurai was like 2003. I mean, that's 20 years ago, right? 19 years ago. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it was set in 100 years ago, 200 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, do you know anything about the background of Tokyo Vice? Like, is Ansel Elgort, does he speak Japanese?
I believe they all learned Japanese fluently for this role.
No way.
Yep.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
But the only... I'm looking at the cast. It's Ansel, who plays, the lead character, Jake. And then Rachel Keller, who plays Samantha. Is there... Everyone else, I think, is Japanese, right?
More or less. There's one... His boss at the newspaper, I think, is Korean in the show. I don't know if she is in the real life, but in the show, she's Korean.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think that, like the character Samantha has like her roommate or one of her friends was also
Eastern European, I want to say.
Yeah, she was like Eastern European. I was trying to find the right way to say it. That's exactly right. So I think it's just those three. But I mean, to learn Japanese is extraordinarily impressive.
This is the mental equivalent of a superhero movie, right? Where in a superhero movie, they put you through a physical grinder to get in shape.
Yeah.
In this movie, I think they really trained you and said, no, you have to learn Japanese fluently.
Yeah. I love the show. You love the show. Is this just one season, or is this going to be... I mean, is this just
no way. They
done?
have to have a season 2. The way they ended Cliffhanger, there's no way this ends with just season 1.
Because, I guess so. But have they made an announcement yet?
Nothing, probably. Right? They must not. I mean, they must have based on the ending of it, but nothing that I caught.
Yeah. It's interesting how they started. Remember the first episode? They kind of, it's like I don't know if it's called a flash forward, but remember they show Ansel and Ken with, basically Tozawa, or like one of Tozawa's like henchmen, talking about like he's going to run an article, right? And then they never talk about that again. That's the starting point is kind of the end point, right?
That's why I think it's going to be, I think that's going to happen in season 2.
Yeah.
That you're absolutely right. It starts with a flash forward, and I think that flash forward happens in season 2.
I mean, what I was surprised by is that it's very genre bending, because it's not really clear if this is an action, if it's a gangster, if it's a drama, if it's a kind of a love story at the same time, right? It's really dynamic in terms of what this is, right? I remember that there was this one, I mean, I guess there's several movies that are about like the Washington Post or like, like different newspapers, and they're doing like a big story, and there's all these like dramas about should they run it, should they not run it, tracking down leads and so forth. These are more dramas, but this is almost like a gangster or a mob type movie,
But from the perspective of a third party, not the police, not the gangster. So you don't get the perspective of a police officer. You don't get the perspective of of a fellow gangster or a rival gang member.
Yeah.
You get the perspective of the guy who's writing the stories about it on the newspaper.
Yeah. If you're the prime minister of Japan, are you happy with how Japan culture and society is portrayed in this show? Does it make you want to move to Japan?
So Japan in general, I've always wanted to go to. And I don't know if I'd want to live there, but it's certainly a place that you want to go to and spend time in. I also think that especially based on this show, but also, from other stories and from the reputation that Japan itself has kind of created for itself, I know that it's not necessarily the most friendly place for foreigners.
Primarily due to language, right? I mean, just in terms of, there's something that makes me really nostalgic for the place. And that is, it seems like there's so many very small, quaint sushi counters, bars, noodle houses. It's the opposite of kind of like the big box, huge places.
It doesn't seem like a massive metropolitan city.
Yes. Everything's a little bit small, and it just seems like so intimate. It seems like it's not like, hey, let's meet at sushi brand X. It's like, hey, let's just go down the street. There's 10 great sushi places on my street. They're all good. We can get a beer at any of these places. They're all the same kind of like homogenous type bars, like a little bit like a European neighborhood feel. But for me, that's one of the very, very intimate things I think about this, and how it's kind of explained Japanese culture to me, is that seems very attractive to me.
I think this show's really, really good. So first of all, let's do a quick recap.
Yes.
The story's premise is a young American man has moved to Tokyo. He has problems with his father. His father was a coroner or a forensic pathologist, something like that.
That's what he says. I'm not sure if that's true, but that's what he says, yes.
In the show, exactly. Mm-hmm. And then, and he moves to Japan with the goal of not just becoming, fluent in Japanese. The first episode, you see a montage of him learning Japanese. Yeah. He's teaching classes to Japanese. He's teaching English. And then you also see him practicing Japanese. And he sits down to write an exam because he wants to be a reporter at, I guess, the most important newspaper in Tokyo.
Yeah.
He gets the job because, even though he's a foreigner, everyone thinks that he's got exceptional writing talent. And he becomes this reporter for this newspaper. And, you see him do a little bit of struggling because he's the rookie reporter and all the rookies are treated like dirt. He takes the crime beat. And, he thinks of reporting in Japan as you would an investigative reporter would in the US, which is, why is no one asking any questions? Why, when we're being presented the data from the police, do we have to copy their words verbatim? He starts questioning the system, and the system, as you would expect, especially in a place like Japan, is not meant to be trifled with. You don't push back on norms. You don't push back on society.
I mean, are you a little bit surprised at how naive he was about what goes into the job? It just seems like usually if you're so passionate about a job, he was surprised by this? What do you think?
I think it was an element of culture shock, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not what you would expect for any reporter in the US, right? The idea, in the West especially, the concept is always freedom of speech. We can write what we want as long as we have the evidence to prove it, and we're going to find out the truth. Whereas in Japan, the superiors tell you what the truth is, and you take that for gospel, again, according to this show, right?
Yeah.
And so no one questions the police briefings. There's no questioning. There's no nothing. It's a statement of facts. You copy down those facts. You go back to your office. You write out the story, and then you're done. So he does that. You see him butting heads with his superior, who is this female reporter who's been at the paper for a long time. She's kind of like his supervisor.
Yep.
And then there's pushback with her supervisor, and there's constant pushback, but he eventually wins people over to his side, not just because of his writing, but because he starts applying logic.
He's enthusiastic. He's very enthusiastic.
Yeah. That's right. And he basically falls down this rabbit hole, and he gets introduced to the Yakuza. Right? But it's not the Yakuza that we think of in movies. It's not the Yakuza we think of in Western pop culture. These are gangsters. These are drug dealers. These are the underground of Tokyo. But it's a lot more civilized than you would expect. And it's a lot more low-key than you would expect. It's not a bunch of people running around shooting people. It's not a bunch of guys with lots of tattoos. Like, we've seen so many, time and time again in Western media, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes down this rabbit hole. He's discovered that a potential love interest of his is dating someone who's in the underworld. And he's following this rabbit hole because people are getting murdered. And we find out that it's because there's two rival gangs in the underworld who are competing for the same space. And, so there's conflict there, and that conflict has caused like a number of people to die. And we find out, there's lots of, I don't want to spoil it because it's an intriguing storyline.
Yeah.
Lots of different rabbit holes to go down. Highly recommended. What else can you say about
his love interest, her character name is Samantha. She basically works as not an escort and definitely not a hostess, prostitute. Right? Yeah, a hostess, right?
Yeah.
In one of these kind of gentleman clubs. And her backstory is that she was on a Mormon mission and then she just kind of stayed in Japan. Do you think there is any other group that gets a worse rap in movies and television than Mormons?
I mean, I haven't really thought about it, but probably.
Right? Like, is there any, can you think of any positive movie or television show where Mormons have been portrayed in a good way? It's so, right? Wasn't there a TV show where there was what's the opposite of monogamous? When you've got like multiple wives, polygamy, right?
Yep.
Wasn't there like a show about like Mormon polygamous family or enclave? So
maybe I don't know.
Why don't the Church of Mormon has like a lot of money? Why aren't they like producing any movie or something to like change the narrative? Right? Very surprising.
I think, and forgive me if this sounds blasphemous, but like the Mormons are like the Canadians of religion. Everybody, they're good guys. They're all good people. They don't create any waves, and, they're doing their own thing, and they're being happy, and they're promoting their own sect of the religion happily.
Yeah. But it's like it's so trite, right? Like, do you think the Book of Mormon was created by Mormons, or is that like something just about Mormons? Have you ever seen that?
Oh, no, the Book of Mormon is the creators of South Park. Trey Stone and Matt Parker did that.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. That was the book.
Have you ever seen it?
I have. I've been dying to watch it, but I still to date can't get tickets for it.
Really? In London,
it's always packed in London. It's always packed in London.
Well, you should book in advance.
It was Hamilton before Hamilton.
Yeah.
It's always busy.
All right. So the Book of Mormon is not actually by Mormons. Although it doesn't portray Mormons as terribly negative in that play. Right?
I haven't seen it. I don't know, but I know that Matt Parker and Trey Stone were behind it.
I had no idea. That's great trivia for the day. Thank you, Pete.
You're welcome. So I think. So yes, he hooks up with the mob on one side, and he also ends up hooking up with Ken Watanabe, who's a chief detective or like a detective in the police, and. Unwittingly, or maybe wittingly, Ansel Elgort ends up becoming the go-to man in between the mob and the police.
Yeah.
Right? And, he's trying to write this killer article. He's trying to, kind of get everyone to believe him at the police, or not just at the police, but also with the newspaper. And you get to see a little bit of drama between the police because, we find out that some of the cops are dirty. We find out that some of not the people at the newspaper, but some of the mob, they don't necessarily want to be in the mob anymore, but they're kind of stuck in that life. So it's a really nice view on this ecosystem between the mob, the journalists, and the police.
I find that he has a lot of free time. For someone who is supposedly working at this newspaper like 100 hours a week, he has surprisingly a lot of free time to just be like hanging out with people, right? It's one of the things that always surprises me about television shows is that it obviously, as realistic as they try to be, people always have an abundance of time where they're always just kind of like waiting outside someone's like door, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I've
or having
just got
like a 4-hour
just got all this time. Yeah, you know, I'm always surprised by, you know, how much time Ansel's character has, because initially when they're hired, remember they make a statement like, this newspaper is now your life. Yeah. And the Japanese culture is known to be apparently very hardworking, right? Like people are working all day, all night. You know, they're sleeping a few minutes on the train, or they're not even sleeping. They're sleeping under their desk.
Or they're sleeping at the office, right? Because you see that happen there as well. So,
yeah. And he seems to have an abundance of time. I know that's for entertainment value, but that's one of the things that always strikes me is that, like, I mean, I know like part of the job is obviously to recruit sources and get leads on stories, but he seems to just have like a lot of free time on his hand to just kind of like chit chat.
Yeah, it seems, you know, for a while I thought he was going to get kicked because he was getting like shirking his responsibilities.
Yeah.
He was more being an investigative reporter than he was doing his real job, or at least it certainly seemed like it.
Yeah. But now he seems to have like a good amount of clout within the newspaper. Like he's got a good rapport.
Yeah, because he's got buy-in with his supervisor. She's in, right? Because they go after this insurance company that's harassing people for payments, or not insurance company, bank loan company, right?
Yeah.
This lending company that's also taking out insurance policies on the people who they are lending money to. It's this whole complicated web of mysteries. There's Samantha's friend dies.
Yeah.
It's a whodunit.
Mm-hmm.
He finds out at the end of the season what happens. He goes to Ken Watanabe, who he had pissed off, but then they kind of like reconcile. It's.
Do you think Ken Watanabe is? Do you find this to be like one of his finest performances, or do you think it's closer to him kind of like mailing it in? I'm not finding it to be his best. You know? Like,
what do you think is his best?
I mean, I thought he was very, very strong in Inception. I don't remember The Last Samurai so much, but like Godzilla's, he was in 2 Godzillas, right? As Dr. Shiro. I didn't find him great in that. I thought, in fact, it was a little bit...
those were ones where I think it was him throwing it, just phoning it in. But
so, how about this one?
I loved him in this. I thought he was very good in this. I think he plays a very believable detective who's kind of, doing everything he can for his job and also for his family. Like the dynamic we see with his 2 children. I liked it. I really liked it.
As good as in Inception? Inception was the model, right? Like for me, Inception...
Yeah, he was very good in Inception. I actually think in general, Ken Watanabe is excellent always. I would say that his off performances are not the norm. They're the rarity. So when you see him in Godzilla, and even in Godzilla, to be very frank, even though they were very low-key lines, he doesn't look like he's phoning anything in.
Yeah. I don't remember him in The Last Samurai as much. And apart from that, I mean, I know he's got a huge bio for Japanese native movies, but not so much for kind of like Western movies. Godzilla, I feel like that's just kind of like his token Japanese role, because Godzilla is kind of Japanese. And of course, there's so much connection with Tokyo in there. So I'm not really loving his role in there. I thought he was exceptional in Inception. And now... I wouldn't say that he's phoning it in, but I just... maybe it's because the detective he's playing is a little bit dour, and that's a little bit of his role in that as that detective. But I'm not finding him like super enthused, and maybe it's because he's not enthused about like confronting directly the gang. Maybe that's part of it. Although maybe it's also, part of the role, which is, like a detective is generally thought of to be like a little bit disheveled and not always like super enthusiastic and not always on the right side of everything, right? They're sometimes morally compromised or something. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I cannot wait enough for season 2, though. I mean, I'm sincerely excited about season 2. I thought season 1 was very good. Are you surprised that this show is half in Japanese? I mean, it's probably even more than half Japanese with subtitles, right?
Yeah, I like that it is, though.
It's hard to watch. It makes it very authentic. Very authentic.
Exactly.
It's hard to watch. And the reason it's hard to watch is that you actually have to watch it. There's...
Yeah, you cannot have this on in the background.
Yeah, there's so many other shows that, you can have it... We say on in the background, but what we really mean is that we can be going to get a glass of water. You can be like looking at something else. Like you don't have to have your eyes glued to the screen. Whereas this is a show that if you go to get a glass of water, if you step out for a moment and you cannot see the screen, you're missing something. And that's one of the things that it's a blessing and a curse. I mean, we do want authentic shows, and I understand not every show is going to be entirely in English. I mean, there's a lot of, even Better Call Saul, right? There's a lot that's in Spanish. But for me, I have to say, even though I appreciate and respect the authenticity, it is personally a little bit annoying, and I prefer when they talk in English, just because it means I can kind of glance away or I can, multitask or do something else at the same time. Yeah, but there will be a season 2. There will be a season 2. Maybe there will be new characters because it looked like Sato. Maybe no more Sato.
Yeah, to be determined, right? I liked it. I thought it was really. It ended really on a pseudo cliffhanger.
Yeah, I agree.
I think there's definitely great. Look, we've been purposefully vague about this episode, about this series. We don't want to give a full spoilered breakdown of everything because, for one, it's hard to do this series justice in 40 minutes, 30 minutes. It's a deep and not complicated, but it's a deep story. And it's got a lot of moving parts. It's got a lot of different angles. And what they've been very good about is showing all those angles from everyone's perspective. So even with the bad guys, even with the mobsters, you get to see the behind the scenes of what's going on with them. It's not just here's the mobsters, they're bad guys, and that's it. You also get to see the way their structure works, their organization works, the inner workings of their philosophy. You get to see a lot of that. And it gives you a very complete picture of the mob, a very complete picture of the police, and a very complete picture of the journalism and society in Japan in total.
Did you love Elgort in Baby Driver? That's the first time I remember seeing him, although he was in the Divergent series. But I only remember
I never watched really the Divergent series, so...
No. But I
thought he was very good in this, in Baby Driver as well.
Yeah, he was amazing. And he was apparently also in The Fault in Our Stars, although that's so old, I don't remember him. But I primarily know him from Baby Driver.
Yeah, likewise. I think that was the movie that really propelled him into the front page for everyone.
Yeah. And now this will be a new level, but I have to say, like, apart from this and Baby Driver, like, I just don't remember him in anything else.
But in general, I think the show is well worth the watch. And I'm very much hope that...
Is it a subscribe? Is it a subscribe? Is it a subscribe for you?
For me, it is a 100% a subscribe.
Yeah. I have to say, I agree. I think now that if we look at HBO Max, we watched Winning Time, which I loved, and I think you liked.
I also enjoyed, but slightly less. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought Winning Time was a subscribe to HBO Max, and I think that Tokyo Vice is a subscribe to HBO Max. But are we watching anything else on HBO Max right now? Barry, you're watching Barry.
I am, but Barry overall as a series is a watch if you've got it, but it's this season in particular has so far done nothing for me.
But apart from that, I'm not watching anything else on HBO Max right now. But there's something that we should talk about on Netflix, which I want to know if you or anyone else is watching. The Time Traveler's Wife.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Time Traveler's Wife? What's that?
Yeah. Have you ever seen The Time Traveler's Wife, the movie?
No.
Oh. There's a movie, and now it's
I thought that was a book.
It was a book. And
they made a movie out of it? Oh, I did not know that.
It was a book, and then it was a movie, and now it is a series.
No, what I thought you were going to talk about when you said time, I was like, oh, okay. I thought you were going to talk about the Umbrella Academy.
Oh, tell me about the Umbrella Academy.
So that is also coming out in June, I think towards the latter half of this month. The third season of Umbrella Academy kicks off.
What is it about?
It is awesome. I believe it's based on a series of comics or graphic novels also, but I'm not sure.
I've never watched it.
Oh, it's highly recommended.
Highly
recommend it.
Is it a subscribe? Is it a subscribe?
Seasons 1 and 2 were definitely a subscribe. Umbrella Academy, the easiest way I can think of it is a light-hearted black humor version of the X-Men.
Oh.
And the idea is there was one guy who realized that, on this one particular day, children all around the world were being born with special powers.
Okay.
And so what he does is by hook or by crook, he adopts as many of those children that he can, okay, and he raises them in one house. Looks like the X-Men mansion. And he raises them in one house to be a team of superhero crime fighters.
Really?
Yeah. And he doesn't name them. He numbers them from 1 through 12, I think. Something like that. And he raises them to be superheroes. And then we pick up, season 1 picks up, they're already adults now. This has happened in their past when they were children. Yeah. And the team has now since broken up. Their father has died, and it's the story of them coming back together for his funeral. And it is a great, great, great story. Like it's actually quite excellent.
Really?
It's quite excellent.
Okay.
I think it's a unique take on the superhero twist.
Is it? You said it's dark though. Is it as dark as The Boys, for example?
No. So when I say dark, I mean it's nowhere near as gory as The Boys. I think when I say dark, I mean, for me, dark is kind of like the Shakespearean version of a comedy, which is to say it's not. When I say dark, I mean that it's not your typical Marvel or DC superhero comic book movie or series. Dark, it's slightly gritty. It's a slightly more real. They deal with issues which are things that they don't normally talk about in the movies, in the MCU movies, for example. So it's really good.
Are they 1 hour episodes?
I don't remember now. It's been so long since I've seen it, but maximum, anywhere between 40 minutes to 1 hour. I don't think they were that much longer.
All right. So this is something that I have to watch because I think now we're in a little bit of a lull. I know we've got Kenobi, but it's coming out once a week now. I know we've got The Boys. It's coming out once a week now. Yep. I think that I need to start something new. I'll give Umbrella Academy a try and see if this is the one.
Yeah. What did you... I know we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. We spoke about that anthology series, Love, Death, and Robots.
Oh, I do like Love, Death, and Robots. Now, those are shorter episodes. And I have to say, something I like about that is that they're like short little stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I know what they're about, but I'm saying, like, is that an accurate way to explain it? So they're short. They're
it's
short
an
little
anthology
stories.
Of shorts. That's exactly right.
And the nice thing about that is, if you're the type of person where you're only able to kind of catch something like, for me, for example, while I'm eating breakfast in the morning, when you're home and you're kind of eating dinner by yourself in the evening, you want to catch something before you go to bed, but you're not ready for like a 2-hour commitment and you're afraid of starting Umbrella Academy because you'll binge 5 episodes and be up until like 3 a.m.,
Right.
The nice thing about Love, Death, and Robots is that you could be like, okay, I'm just going to watch one. There's no benefit to staying for a second one because there's no continuity. It's entirely different. And each of them, I think, is interesting because they really make you, they're all kind of provocative,
Social commentary, right?
Yeah. So some of them, I like it. I'm like, oh, I wish there was more. Some of them I'm like, oh, this isn't for me. I'm happy it's over. I wouldn't say it's hit and miss. It's more hits than misses. But, and they're all very similar style, theme, right? Maybe they're directed by different people, but I mean, you can see there's some common themes, but just because you like one, you may not like another one,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why it's not super, super easy for me to say that, if you've never watched it or if you don't have Netflix, you should subscribe.
Yeah.
I do end up saying you have to subscribe to it because there are now 3 seasons of it and you get a good number of short stories between all 3 seasons. And if you pick out the best of the best from there, you get a very, very good, compelling series of shorts in this, in this anthology. And you're right. I would say out of every 10 shorts, 7 are, I would say 5 are excellent. Yeah. I would say 2 or 3 are good. Yeah. And the other 2, meh. I couldn't care less. Not bad, but not particularly good.
Yeah. I probably agree with that ratio. I mean, it's interesting. I wonder if any of these will ever be picked up to be made into a feature film or, the inspiration for a series, because some of them do have some longevity to them,
Yeah, I agree.
Some obviously do not. Yeah. I mean, there's also a lot of movies that could actually be 20-minute shorts instead of, a 2-hour movie, right?
Exactly. So I do think that it's worth a watch me personally, if you don't have Netflix, you should go out and get it for it, only because you're also getting a lot of other stories. I think, Ethan, you're probably, based on what you've said, it's probably something that, if you've got it, you should watch it.
I'm sorry to downgrade it. I think this is a pass.
Ooh, okay.
But I mean, I know we're only supposed to have 3 categories, but I don't think this is something where you should go out of your way and mooch a password for it. If you already have a subscription and you're looking for something, then I think you should go ahead and watch it. It's definitely worth your time. If, you've got the opportunity to watch it, yes. But I don't think you're actually missing out on anything just because there are so many that if you see 5, it's not like you've seen 5. You've also seen none of the other ones, So you can actually, it's kind of an all or none, So if you really like it, you should go ahead and watch them. But I think it's not even worth mooching because you're never going to be able to really satisfy yourself unless you see all of them.
Right. That's interesting.
So what do we have next? So that's what we've got. We've got to stay current on Obi-Wan. We've got to stay current on The Boys. And I've got to catch up on the Umbrella Academy season 3 on Netflix. So you've got a couple weeks.
You've got a couple weeks. I think Umbrella Academy comes out the last week of June.
I haven't seen the first 2 seasons, though.
So, and then you've got next week as well. You've got the launch of Ms. Marvel. That comes out also on Wednesday. It also releases with Kenobi every week. It's not very high on my list.
I don't know anything about it. What can you tell me about it?
No, it's based on Kamala Khan. She's the first Pakistani American superhero. She, I believe, is also going to be in Captain Marvel 2. Oh. I think this is their way of teasing the Ms. Marvel's movie. I think it'll be a mooch. I don't expect it to be a must subscribe. I think the art style is also, and the film style is going to be geared towards being more geared towards a younger audience.
No.
But still, we'll watch it because, of course, that's what we do.
What about, when is Thor Love and Thunder coming out in cinemas?
July 8th, almost exactly 1 month from now.
Really? July 8th? After 4th of July?
After 4th of July.
Is that weird?
So the 4th of July falls on a Monday. Yeah, I suppose they could have done it that first weekend, right? 1, 2, 3. They could have gotten it out on the 30th of June and had that 4-day weekend into... Yeah, they would have had that 4-day weekend there.
Or do they think like everyone's just going to be out doing barbecues? Everyone's gonna
Yeah, that's the other thing is I don't think 4th of July is a weekend where people actually go out and watch movies.
Unless it rains. Yeah.
Yeah, in general, I'm pretty sure 4th of July is about sitting at home, doing your barbecues and relaxing. I don't think it's a...
Well, actually,
watch the cinema.
You're right, because like everyone's going to watch fireworks at night. No one's like, hey, did you see the fireworks? No, I was watching the cinema.
I was in the dark room watching Thor. Exactly. So that next weekend probably is good for it.
All right. We'll be there for that as well.
Yes. There may be 1 or 2 other movies in between that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. I'm sure you'll have seen or you will watch after this the trailer for Man from Toronto starring Kevin Hart.
I did see the trailer.
Yeah, I was a bit meh about it as well.
I just don't see anything compelling about it.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a movie to be released in the cinema. I'm glad. It looks like your perfect Netflix movie.
What makes me question Netflix is that I love Kevin Hart. I think he's sincerely funny. But he's playing the same Kevin Hart role, the bumbling, I'm afraid of everything guy.
How did I get in this position guy?
Yeah, and Woody Harrelson is playing the same wide-eyed, crazy psychopath role. I just feel like I haven't seen that movie, but I've seen that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is exactly like Central Intelligence, but instead of The Rock, it's Woody Harrelson. Yeah.
I mean, I think I have to say though, The Rock and Kevin Hart paired up again, I am absolutely in. Absolutely in. If they did, what was it? It was Secret Intelligence? What was there?
They did Secret Intelligence?
Is that what it's called? Secret Intelligence? I feel like I'm making that
Central
up.
Intelligence.
Central Intelligence. Thanks.
Yeah.
If they did Central Intelligence 2, I am absolutely in. I'm in the queue opening night, right? I think it's Woody Harrelson that I've just seen him be crazy in so many movies, including Suicide Squad 2, right?
Woody Harrelson was in Suicide Squad 2?
Yeah, at the beginning. 1 or 2. He was at the beginning when he was in the... Yeah, he was. He was like in the courtyard and he was like bouncing a ball. And the ball hit the bird.
No, that wasn't Woody Harrelson. That was Michael Rooker.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's Yondu from Guardians in the Galaxy. But yes, same energy.
Same energy. Thanks for picking me up, Pete.
I know what you mean.
Thank you for picking me up, Pete.
Same exact energy.
That was the nicest way you could have ever told me that I was wrong, which is same energy.
Yeah. No, it's because they're playing the same guy, basically. Yeah. You could have replaced either of them and it would have been equivalent. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
I'm sorry. I like Woody Harrelson a lot, but I feel like I've seen enough, to be honest.
Sure.
But and the same thing with Kevin Hart as that bumbling guy, unless you pair him with The Rock where they can play off of each other, I'm just not compelled. So when I saw that trailer for The Man from Toronto, I gave it a big yawn. I'm sorry. That's for me. That's already a skip.
No, that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine.
But that's bad.
I had high hopes for it, but that's what you get.
That's also bad. I mean, if there's a trailer that I've already said skip It's
but it's exactly goes to exactly what you were saying about Netflix.
Yeah.
That's their model. They say, okay, I've got $50 million to do this movie. Let's get Woody Harrelson. Let's get Kevin Hart. Let's do this movie. We can shoot it in less than $50 million. And because it's got Kevin Hart in it, we'll still get that much money back. And let's move on.
Pete, thank you for this episode. I wish you happy viewing this week. We got to stay on top of our stuff. We will speak next week, and we'll have much, much more to break down for sure.
Thank you, Ethan. I'm looking forward to it. Everyone else, please messages at aloha@filmsandstuffpodcast.com or send us tweets at F&S Podcast.
Every week, Pete is imploring you to message us. Please take him at face value for his advice. We need messages. We'll send out our spreadsheet of rankings. That's good value, I think.
That's right. So like and subscribe and all that nonsense. Looking forward to it. Thanks a lot, Ethan.
All right.
See you guys next week.
Next week, everybody. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.